Well, good evening, everyone. I hope you've had a good Sunday. First of all, I want to wish all of our mothers who are attending tonight a happy Mother's Day. And it's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us for tonight's health webinar. Before I introduce our speaker and before we get started, I just want to check if everyone can hear me and see our screen. And please comment in the chat box if you can do that. We'd also love to know where everyone is watching from. So please type where you're based in right now. My name is Ryan Fernandez. I'm your MC. I'm also the organizer for tonight's talk. Tonight's talk is actually sponsored by Syzygy Philippines. We are a leadership search and development organization. We're also a business community. And one of the things we really value in our community, like everyone else, is health. Success or finances are meaningless if you don't have health to back it up. So, one of our passions in our community is to share about health, to talk about disease prevention, to empower our viewers, our followers, when it comes to making themselves and their loved ones uh, achieve optimal health. So, welcome tonight, our attendees from, we have Mark from Malolos. Welcome, Mark. Good to see you here. Hope you're doing well. Chad and Jovi, welcome. Sabina is a student from Marikina. Lerma is from Las Piñas. Rachel Caseja is from Olongapo. Hi, Doc Rachel. She's a doctor. Hope you're doing well there in Olongapo, Subic. Uh, Jane Banyas is from Manila. Jamie is from Marikina. We've got Delio, who's watching from Baguio City. I think you're the most northern viewer we have tonight, Delio, but let's see. We also have Jaja, who is watching from Manila. Hi, Jaja. And Ariel watching from Alabang. And more people coming in. Trish Lopez from Dumaguete, welcome. And belated happy birthday, Trish. And welcome to the community. And yes, feel free to greet each other a happy Mother's Day. Either you're a mother in the room or you have a mother, so there's room to greet everyone. And yeah, go ahead and greet each other. That's awesome. While we're at it, if you want to share if what you're looking forward to learning tonight, feel free to type. So personally, I'm looking forward to learning how to be healthier for myself and for my family. So if you feel the same way, you can type agree or you can type your own reasons. There's a lot of learning that we're going to go through tonight. So you can do that. You can also share this link with your friends, with your family. There's still time for them to catch up. And if you can get a hold of the link for YouTube, this is actually also being broadcasted live stream on YouTube right now. You can go ahead and do that. Okay, we've got more people coming in. Anyway, I won't delay our speaker anymore. He has been preparing day and night for this webinar to come along and has been practicing, I'm sure. Doc Rico, maybe I can stop sharing and you can share your screen already. Our speaker is no stranger to sharing his passion about health in our Syzygy activities. He is a family medicine practitioner by background. He is also an advocate for health and wellness and disease prevention, despite uh, people taking a lot of medication. So, Doc Rico, I can see you're sharing your screen. There's a, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have to turn off the share with video resolution. Can you do that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sige.
Maybe that's affecting why it looks pixelated.
Hmm.
So if
Saan ba
you're
yun?
if you're watching here and you have type 2 diabetes or you have family with type 2 diabetes, you're in the right room because one of Dr. Rico's specialties is reversing type 2 diabetes
Is that okay na?
natural way. Yes, Rico, looks much, much better. So I think you're all set. Let me pass the stage to you. Let's welcome our speaker tonight, Dr. Rico Santos.
Hi, good evening. Welcome and happy Mother's Day to mothers listening tonight. So, I'm Dr. Ricco Santos. I have a clinic practice in Marikina, self-employed. I'm married to Benny. I have 3 kids, young millennials who have minds of their own. So, alam niyo na, okay? So, our topic for tonight is reversing sickness and obesity through nutrition, most particularly Syndrome X. And I have classmates listening to me tonight. Mga classmate ko sa medicine. So, and I'm grateful also to CCG Philippines for organizing this event. And it's also part of my disclosure because I belong to this community, a leadership and personal development organization, empowering people to be in business and belongs. And in particular, many thanks to Miss Olivia Fernandez, Bernabe, hindi ko nakalimutan yung Bernabe, ha? Frank, co-founder of CCG, for she is very much instrumental in myself coming out of my cocoon, overcoming my fear of public speaking. Alam naman nila, I only talk to patients within the confines of a small room. And there I can be quite talkative after listening to them, of course. To most of you who have listened to me already, alam niyo na siguro to, no? But a few might be, this is quite new information for them. And I invite you to become skeptics, especially those who are health professionals. No? Do your own in-depth study, just like I did, research materials, books, talks, seminars. And I actually even completed a month-long program at Adventist Medical Center in Manila, their CHIP program, a vegan program, about 2008. But it's not for me. I need my calorie dense adobo, kare-kare, liempo, etc., with veggies, of course. So we go on. The greatest medicine of all. It was actually William Osler who said that one of the duties of a physician is to educate the masses and not to take medicine. William Osler is one of 4 founders of the Johns Hopkins Hospital and one of the pillars of modern medicine. And this is my patient, labor of love, no? One of the greatest rewards of a physician is seeing, helping somebody get well. She is actually 11 or 14 years diabetic, 9 years of which on insulin, feeling helpless. And she accidentally came to my talk, and she's now very much changed. No? Laking pasalamat niya. I promise you, if you have this condition, it will change your life. So most of the materials on this talk actually came from these 3 books by Dr. Jason Fong. The Obesity Code, Diabetes Code, and the Complete Guide to Fasting. Dr. Jason Fong actually is a Canadian, Toronto-based nephrologist. No? He was seeing end-stage renal disease patients due to diabetes, and he was very much frustrated kasi wala na siyang halos magawa. No? But then he delved into the research, past and present, and he found a solution. This is what I'm going to talk to you today. But before that, let's have a quiz. So, do you have fat around your belly? So, answeran nyo lang to, yes or no, ha? Do you have high blood pressure, a family history of heart disease, high levels of triglycerides in your lipid profile, tumataas na ba ang inyong good cholesterol? Bumababa ba ang good cholesterol nyo? Tumataas ba ang SGPT, yung liver enzyme? Or have you been diagnosed with fatty liver? Do you have high levels of uric acid? Or have had gout? Have you been frustrated by failure or attempts to lose weight, especially with a low-fat diet? Do you have patches of dark-colored skin in your neck, in your shins? Or do you have dry skin and itchiness? No? Do you or a family member have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes? How about gestational diabetes? Diabetes during pregnancy? Do you or a family member have infertility problems or PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome? Do you constantly crave sugary foods and starchy foods? Do you retain water easily? Nagkakaroon ka ba ng pedal edema or manas? Do you get fatigued easily? Do you have brain fog? Do you have difficulty concentrating, focusing? So, if you answered yes to any 2 or more of the questions, you probably have insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, or syndrome X. These are all synonymous. No? So kung meron kayo nun, you have syndrome X. I can't see your comments or questions, so later I will address them in the Q&As. So that is metabolic syndrome, obesity, heart disease, lipid problems, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, dementia, or being now called type 3 diabetes, cancer, ovarian disease, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And the problem is this hormone, insulin. Like any other hormone, when it's out of balance, we get sick. Too much of any hormone or too little, we get sick. Examples are hypothyroidism or versus hyperthyroidism, Cushing syndrome versus Addison syndrome. Yung cortisol niya tumataas sa Cushing's, sa Addison's naman bumababa. So That's it with hormones. When we get too much, we produce too much, we get sick. When we produce too little, we also get sick. So ganun din sa insulin. When insulin goes up, we get sick. When insulin goes down, we get sick also. An example of that is type 1 diabetes. When the inability of the pancreas to produce enough insulin. So that's type 1 diabetes. Insulin resistance is actually a condition wherein our body is producing too much insulin, eventually leading to obesity and type 2 diabetes. And what causes the insulin to go up? Too much carbohydrates in our diet, especially the refined ones, too much of protein, but too little of fat. The biggest stimulus to insulin is carbohydrates. Secondary ang protein, and look at the graph. Fat hardly stimulates insulin. So logically, what we need to eat more are fats, healthy fats. And frequent eating also causes our insulin levels to rise persistently. So kung parati tayong kumakain, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and in between we eat snacks, actually we graze it. We just don't eat snacks. Every time na idle tayo, may ginagawa tayo sa bahay, we are on a deadline, we have something beside us, snacking, grazing all the time. So every time we are eating, insulin levels gets higher and higher until the baseline is so high that we develop insulin resistance. It becomes 5 to 7 times higher. So why does it go up? Because much like any other substance, when we are overexposed to it, we develop tolerance or resistance to the substance. Take the analogy of alcohol. The first few times you drink alcohol, madali kang malasing. As you go, drink more and more every day, one case of beer will not get you drunk. Much like the same thing with pills, sleeping pills. One tablet can get you to sleep easily, but if you do it every night for long, you'll need more and more tablets, which is actually dangerous. And the same thing with nitroglycerin patch. We were taught in medicine that we should not give nitroglycerin patches 24 hours a day, in a day, because the body develops resistance to it. Humihina ang effect ng nitroglycerin patch for chest pain. So ganun din ang katawan natin sa insulin. When we are exposed to too much insulin, our body develops tolerance or resistance to it. It's a way of our body to protect itself from the harmful effects of insulin. In summary, these are what causes insulin levels to rise. Too many sugars in the diet, simple sugars, and even complex carbohydrates. Sa ating big pa lang, it's already converted to glucose by the enzyme amylase. Too many proteins moderately increases insulin. Too frequent eating. And that leads to a spiral of high insulin levels, leading to insulin resistance. Yeah, the normal metabolism, you only need a little of insulin, but in insulin-resistant metabolism, very high levels of insulin to get your blood sugar to normal. And this is a vicious cycle, ongoing vicious cycle, never ending. And this is a biochemical drive that's very hard to control by willpower alone. Kaya those who attempted to lose weight, by calorie restriction, a few weeks, month, kaya nila. Pero eventually, willpower alone cannot do it because it's a biochemical drive that goes on a cycle and cycle. So you have to break that cycle. You have to cut out most of the carbs, sugars, and starches, and eating less frequently to take back control. But not everyone with insulin resistance is overweight or obese. You can be as thin as I am and still be insulin resistant. I've actually had attacks of gout before when I was younger. 2 attacks of gout. May hilig kasi ako sa bottomless iced tea. And no one dies from insulin resistance. It's just a vehicle that gets you there slowly. It's a silent condition that creeps over your body until boom, you get the full-blown disease of diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, stroke, etc. This is the biggest difference between type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is insufficient insulin, so they need insulin injections, like Gary Valenciano. And type 2 diabetes, our body is actually producing more because of insulin resistance. But we have been treating them the same, controlling only blood sugar. Type 1 with insulin injections, type 2 diabetes with oral medications, and then later on, pag hindi na kaya ng oral medications, we give insulin. But the problem is too much insulin sa type 2 diabetes. So there must be something wrong with what we're doing. Kaya yung patient, never-ending cycle of drugs, left and right. So this is a TED Talk by Dr. Sarah Halberg, an obesity doctor, a lipidologist. This was in 2015. It became viral in YouTube. The way to reverse type 2 diabetes and obesity starts first with ignoring the guidelines. And he's now the head of Virta Health, spearheading the reversal of type 2 diabetes in the US. Diyan ang vicious cycle. When we eat carbs to over tolerance, this is the vicious cycle of insulin resistance going over and over and over again. What we need to do is eat carbs under tolerance, konti lang, and yung mga good carbs like vegetables, so that our body can recover. Pagka ganyan, tumataas na yung insulin mo. And then, never-ending cycle of insulin resistance. Ito ang nangyayari. When we eat carbs and frequent eating, blood sugars go up, insulin is secreted by our pancreas. Pag paulit-ulit yan, we develop fatty liver. Then eventually hepatic insulin resistance sets in because our body is trying to protect us from high insulin levels. Over the years, we develop damage to the eyes, nerves, kidneys, arteries, brain, memory problems, fatty liver in the pancreas and liver due to the overexposure to insulin. Because insulin is a fat storing hormone. Everything that we eat, insulin channels it to fat storage. Pag mataas ang insulin natin, we cannot access the fat. And eventually, 10, 20, 30 years later, our pancreas become exhausted, beta cell dysfunction, we develop high blood sugar, full-blown diabetes. This is from the book Obesity Code. Factors that contribute to high insulin levels. The massive, this is caused the massive contributor is fructose from sugar and sugar-containing foods, mostly ultra-processed foods. And that is the problem. Fructose is not really an innocuous substance. No? Dr. Robert Lustig actually calls it a toxin. The dose makes the toxin. When we eat too much of it, it becomes a toxin. And the problem with fructose is it's 100% metabolized by the liver only. No other organs of the body can metabolize fructose. And it's directly converted to triglycerides. And that leads to fatty liver and eventually to cirrhosis. My aunt actually died of cirrhosis of the liver due to massive GI bleeding. And hindi naman umiinom yun, hindi umiinom ng alak, hindi tumitikim ng alak. Pero mahilig siya sa mga panghimagas, matatamis. So this is the pathway wherein she develops cirrhosis of the liver. And the requirement of my daughter in William College at the age of 22 also died from massive GI bleeding from cirrhosis of the liver. As young as 22 years old, you can already get cirrhosis. So young people now get insulin resistance earlier. This is the metabolic syndrome. High blood sugars, triglycerides, low good cholesterol, high blood pressure, fatty liver, obesity, and eventually leading to the diseases of civilization. The NCDs, the non-communicable diseases, that's becoming a global epidemic actually, even bigger than the coronavirus. It doesn't kill you right away, but it kills you eventually, if not addressed. So this is what happens with insulin. It's actually the substance that triggers thickening of the arteries, not cholesterol. Cholesterol is only passenger in this pathway. And even the ADA, Diabetes Care Journal, sabi nila, it's all about the insulin. Insulin resistance is likely the most important single cause of coronary artery disease. The better understanding of its pathogenesis and how it might be prevented could could have a profound effect on coronary artery disease. Yan ang pathway why it causes thickening, increased adhesion sa endothelium, sa lining ng arteries, migration ngayon ng mga white blood cells, pro-inflammatory, kaya nadideposit yung mga cholesterol lipoproteins, LDL, is because cholesterol is an important ingredient in the repair of cell membranes. And it's also a growth factor. So, ito yung nai-ignore that contributes to the complications of diabetes. We are only addressing high blood sugar and ignoring elevated insulin levels. We actually give medications that increases insulin levels to lower blood sugar. And pag hindi na kaya ng mga gamot, we give injections of insulin, which is, I think, illogical. Ang problema sa insulin resistance is too much. Why give more insulin to somebody who has already very high levels of insulin? Yan ang effect niya sa ating mga blood vessels. There we have 100,000 kilometers of them. And 80% of them are very small capillaries in your eyes, kidneys, toes, fingers, brain. No wonder complications are multi-organs ng katawan. And another way that it can affect arteries is through the nitric oxide. Fructose stimulates also uric acid production. It's actually the one, fructose is the one triggering more uric acid production. And uric acid production inhibits the enzyme that makes your endothelial cells secrete nitric oxide, a vasodilator. So it contributes to high blood pressure also. Yung elevated fructose eventually leading to uric acid increase, and then uric acid inhibiting nitric oxide synthase, we now produce less of nitric oxide. So magkakos ng hypertension, high blood pressure. And insulin resistance and diabetes are actually an arterial clogging disease. And these studies, UKPDS, Accord, Advance, BADT, and Origin trials, have actually proven that the more you rigidly control blood sugar, the more the patients get worse. Because most of those drugs that were given were sulfonylureas. Sulfonylureas in these studies makes the pancreas secrete more insulin. So, tumaas din ang insulin nila. Bumaba nga ang blood sugar, but their insulin went up. So, the participants actually got worse. Yung Origin trial, they used insulin. This is what happens over decades. Your insulin levels here are already elevated years before you become a full-blown diabetic. Yung sa taas is blood sugar. Decades before you become full-blown diabetic, normal pa ang blood sugar mo, pero yung insulin mo ay tumataas. So, later on, magkakaroon ka na ng diabetes. And later on, when your pancreas gets exhausted, insulin secretion drops. So nagkakaroon ng relative insulin deficiency. Although mataas yung insulin mo, but it's not enough to lower or normalize your blood sugar. So this is what happens, the continuum of cardiovascular risk in type 2 diabetes. Insulin resistance precedes the diabetes diagnosis. Even though, as we see in most patients, even though their blood sugars are controlled, the complications set in until such time, nade-delay lang, but eventually leading to the complications. And this is Dr. Joseph Kraft. He is the chairman and sa clinical pathology and nuclear medicine sa St. Joseph, Chicago, Illinois. 35 years. He is a nuclear medicine specialist, the father of renowned pathologist, father of insulin assay. And he actually tested more than 11 to 15,000 individuals, so taking their oral glucose tolerance test, but with also an insulin tolerance test. So he said that the standard glucose tolerance test actually misses 78% of those who actually had a normal hyperinsulinemic response, which represents early diabetes. So sabi niya, nami-miss yung diagnosis. Normal nga yung blood sugar, but insulin is already elevated. You should read this book here. He published it when he is 90 years old. Kasi walang nakikinig sa kanya. And this is Gerald Raven. He was actually the first to discover syndrome X in 1997. Sabi niya is that the basic defect in syndrome X is to resistance to insulin-mediated glucose disposal. When you increase carbohydrate, you need more insulin to maintain homeostasis. Hence, ang sabi niya is to cure the illness should be to restrict carbohydrates. It should be the key therapy for the condition. And this is Tim Noakes, no? Formerly an advocate of high-carb nutrition. Athlete siya kasi. But he had a change of paradigm when he got diabetic himself. Totally turn around ang kanyang paradigm. He is now an advocate of low-carb, high-fat nutrition. Kasi ito ang consequences ng high carbohydrate diet. Every organ of our body is affected. Alzheimer's, neuropathy, retinopathy, Parkinson's, even cancer. Erectile dysfunction, mga lalaki dyan. So, we can say now that type 2 diabetes is more of a disease of insulin than glucose. And hyperinsulinemia or high insulin levels precedes hyperglycemia mga 10, 20, 30 years before high blood sugars. And this is how we test for diabetes. You are diabetic. If your blood sugar rise up by more than 7 millimoles or 126 milligrams, a pre-diabetic, if in between 100 to 125 milligrams, below that is normal. And another test that we do is the oral glucose tolerance test and the HbA1c test. Nilimutan ko. But there's a better test. No? We should be testing for high insulin levels. Fasting insulin should not be more than 5 milli-IU, milli-international units per liter. We should be testing for the HOMA-IR, or the homeostatic model assessment of insulin resistance. The healthy range is around 0.5 to 1.4. Less than 1, you are insulin sensitive, which is optimal. Above 1.9, it indicates early insulin resistance. When it's 2.9, significant insulin resistance. But it's not routinely tested. It's actually expensive, around 2,000 per test. But there's a surrogate marker, sa lipid profile. You can actually look at the triglycerides, good cholesterol ratio. Ideal should be less than 2. Yan. Pag tumataas yan, more than 2, you are more likely insulin resistant. And another way, practical way of for testing insulin resistance is face the wall. If your tummy touches the wall first, you're probably insulin resistant. Or when you look down and you cannot see your toes, you're probably insulin resistant. But not all, but even a thin person can be insulin resistant. So it's better to have your self-testing. And type 2, there is hope for syndrome X and type 2 diabetes. It is actually a naturally reversible dietary disease. And before we start, I started patients, no? Parati kong tinatanong sa kanila, are you willing to give up the things, the foods that are making you sick? If they agree, then we go on. And these are the foods that are making you sick. The curse, processed foods, too much of trans fats, branched-chain amino acids, too much of vegetable oils, the canola, soybean oil, sunflower oil. These are omega-6. They are inflammatory seed oils, highly processed, ultra-processed seed oils, alcohol, starches, and grains. And don't forget sugar. And we're not getting enough of fiber from vegetables, omega-3s, from wild fish. Kasi ang pangkaraniwan ng mga fish natin ngayon are farmed na, mostly fed with feeds, and we don't have enough micronutrients. Kasi ang mga food natin from the market is depleted na with nutrients. Kasi dahil sa mga farmlands din natin, using too much of pesticides and chemical fertilizers. And they are the weapons of mass destruction, slowly killing us, and we're not even aware of it. This is how we treat lifestyle diseases today. It's all symptomatic. We only treat the symptoms. We never really address the root cause. Like in infection, pag fever lang ang tinitreat natin with paracetamol, sure, the patient's fever will go down, but if we don't address the infection with antibiotics, it persists. So we go to the root cause. We give antibiotics to combat the bacteria. But these lifestyle diseases, all these medicines do not address the root cause. Bababa ang BP, magno-normalize ang cholesterol, bababa uric acid, blah, 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 blood sugar, but then root cause are not being addressed. And they do not alter the disease process. It just delays them. Ito ang standard of care. Insulin, injection. Sulfonylureas, thiazolidones, no? Yung mga bagong medications na ngayon, SGL2, etc. These all do not cure the disease. Because ang target nila is normalizing blood sugar only. What we should do is a different approach to keep the insulin low. Low carb and healthy fats. Intermittent fasting, when we do intermittent fasting, syempre, pag hindi tayo kumakain intermittently, our insulin does not go up as frequently. And of course, HIIT or high intensity interval training and strength training to improve insulin resistance. These modalities can achieve reversal. It's like this analogy. We have to stop feeding the barrel. And the only way to do that, to turn off the faucet. Or we can do some fasting and a little bit of exercise. You heard me right there, little bit. You don't have to do massive exercises. This is what happens. When we are fed, insulin levels go high. We store those calories in the liver, subcutaneous tissue, and our source of energy is glucose. So we really lose weight. Ang source ng energy natin is around 1,700 calories lang from the glycogen stores in the liver and muscles. Marami tayong mood swings, hunger pains, cravings. But when we do fasting and low carb, our insulin levels go down. We now can use those stored fat as a source of energy. So, ayan ang source of energy po is around 70,000 calories. Our mood and cognition improve, no more hunger pains or cravings. We switch our fuel from glucose to ketones or fats. So our treatment goals should be to lower insulin. And the solution is step 1, to put less sugar in and to burn off the remaining sugar. Putting less sugar in means go low carb and high fat. Burn off means is to fast intermittently. So these are the things, the foods that causes high insulin levels. Carbohydrates, carbs, combinations of carbs, proteins, and fats, MSG and sweeteners, whether artificial or natural. Increased proteins, yung iwasan natin yung mga lean meat. Frequent eating, increased stress, and poor sleep. What lowers insulin is the keto or the low-carb, high-fat diet, intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating. Even apple cider vinegar can help lower insulin. Minerals like magnesium, potassium can have a profound effect on insulin sensitivity. Vitamin D, exposure to sunlight, decreases stress, enough sleep. And you can actually get a sense that your blood insulin levels are already going down when you have less hunger and cravings, your belly fat is shrinking, even though your weight is not yet going down, but you see inches loss in your waist, in your arms. So your blood pressure will actually normalize. your blood sugar will improve. You will no longer experience dawn phenomenon, which is high blood sugars in the morning. You'll have more energy and you'll have improved satiety. Ito ang dapat nating gawin to keep the insulin low. Control your carbohydrates, prioritize your protein moderately, fill the rest of your calories with fat, do intermittent fasting, high intensity interval training, and strength training, and on a case-to-case basis, supplementation for those who are coming off from a very, very bad diet. So the cure is real food. You should go lower than 50 grams per day. And these are mostly real food. Avoid ultra-processed food, junk foods. Is there really a science behind carbohydrate restriction? Yes. Nutrition journal, clear, reviewed by scientists, doctors, professionals. Dietary carbohydrate restriction should be the first approach in diabetes management from several institutions all over the world. They said that the benefits of carbohydrate restriction in diabetes are immediate and well documented. Dietary carbohydrate restriction reliably reduces high blood glucose, does not require weight loss, although it is still best for weight loss, and leads to the reduction or elimination of medications. It has never shown side effects comparable with those with many drugs, seen in many drugs. And the ADA actually came out with a consensus statement in April 18, 2019. They are now emphasizing non-starchy vegetables, minimize added sugars and refined grains, choose whole foods over highly processed foods, reducing overall carbohydrate intake for individuals with diabetes has demonstrated the most evidence for improving glycemia, for improving blood sugar. Through overall reduction with a low or very low carbohydrate eating plans. And this is what they're doing at Virta Health, led by their medical director, Dr. Sarah Halber. This was their recent study, 2-year, going on 3-year study now. Sustained long-term beneficial effects on multiple clinical markers of diabetes and cardiometabolic health, utilizing less medication. The intervention was effective in resolution of diabetes, visceral obesity with no adverse effect on bone health. And this is actually Robert E. Ratner. He is the Chief Science and Medical Officer of ADA. He now joined Virta Health as their Science and Medical Officer. So, lumipat na siya. And even before that, 20 years before, studies by Dr. Eric Westman, the protege of Dr. Robert Atkins, they already made studies. Evidence for weight loss and reduced health risks through a low-carb diet. And dapat low-carb should be less than 50. Yan ang ketone threshold to make it effective. And it is shown much better results than a low-fat or Mediterranean diet long-term. And its metabolic effect is very much different. The green bar represents the low-carb, high-fat diet. The gray bar are the low-fat diet. profound metabolic effect, especially sa insulin, sa triglycerides and HDL ratio. Good cholesterol goes up, leptin goes down, so nag-improve yung leptin resistance, glucose goes down, small LDL size goes down, so profound metabolic effect. And it has other benefits more than weight and blood sugar. Yeah, body fat, nawawala. Blood sugar, blood pressure, inflammation goes down. Yung mga pain and aches, nawawala. You sleep better, your mood improves. And it has other therapeutic effects beyond obesity and diabetes. It was actually used, the keto diet, for epilepsy decades earlier. It's now helping other disease problems. And they're now using it for traumatic brain injury and evidence in Alzheimer's and even cancer. Kasi cancer, ang food ng cancer is carbohydrates, mostly carbohydrates. So sa protein naman, we actually need protein, especially when we're getting older because of the condition of sarcopenia, increased muscle loss due to age. Kasi most aging individuals are very sedentary. Kaya dapat we need to be more active, especially now that we are staying at home. Huwag yung puro sa upo-upo lang at puro higa-higa lang. We should do some moderate exercises like gardening, jogging in place, doing some chores. No? So, ang advocate talaga dapat sa protein is around 1.5 to 1.75 as recommended by Virta Health. So, with a low carb in combination with protein, ang effect sa insulin is very, very low. Parang 1.3 increase lang. But when combined with a standard American diet that is very high in carbohydrates, very profound ang increase ng insulin. So, dapat ang protein is combined to a low carb para mababa ang effect na sa insulin. Now, we go to the fat. No? Dito tayo kasi masyado nang demonize ang fat. We should fill the rest of our calories with fat. Mostly the good kind. Huwag natin piliin yung mga seed oils. Over the decades, research and science have proven already that the lipid hypothesis is bankrupt. No? This is how Keys faked it. He reported only data from 6 countries, wherein meron namang data in 22 countries. So his study, his association study, does not really prove that cholesterol is the cause of cardiovascular diseases. And this study by the Credit Suisse Research Institute, I saw you a video, 5-minute video.
Fat makes you fat. Cholesterol clogs your arteries. Saturated fat is worst. We've all been warned about fat, yet some of these warnings are based on myths rather than science. Most of us grew up with conventional dietary wisdom that says to lower our intake of fat and cholesterol and not to worry about polyunsaturated fat and carbohydrates. But there is enough evidence that these dietary recommendations are the main cause behind the high levels of obesity and metabolic syndrome in the US and in several other countries. We have conducted an in-depth review of this complex topic. Here are some of our main findings. The main perception of the Western world is that fat makes you fat. Yet the fat content in our body does not correlate to the fat that we eat. Since 1960, the number of obese people in the US has grown, but fat consumption per head in that period grew just 2%, protein 7%, and carbohydrates 30%. So if we want to find a culprit, carbohydrates are a more likely candidate. What's more, data on heart diseases and life expectancy from countries like France, Spain or Kiribati suggests that saturated fats, which for years have been considered dangerous, are actually good for you. So is omega-3. But then there's omega-6 that might not be as good as touted. And what about monounsaturated fats? Sounds confusing to you? Well, here's how we clear things up. Overall, dietary fats in raw foods and ingredients can be divided into 4 main types. Saturated fats, such as in dairy, coconut oil and meat. Monounsaturated fats, such as in olive oil, lards, palm oil, duck fat, nuts. Polyunsaturated omega-6 fats, such as in sunflower, soybean and cottonseed oil. And polyunsaturated omega-3 fats, such as in fish oil and flaxseed. Research shows indeed that omega-3 is beneficial to our health and that monounsaturated fats, found in olive oil, are, from a health point of view, neutral. On the other hand, the data on omega-6 is highly controversial. For years, vegetable oils have been believed to help reduce the chance of suffering a heart attack. But our own analysis shows just the opposite. There is a significant correlation between a high level of omega-6 intake and a high level of deaths by heart attacks in Europe. Also, between 1910 and 1960, the consumption of vegetable oil per capita in the US increased by 169%. Yet it did not help stop the epidemic of heart attacks in the US in the 60s. Was it saturated fat? Well, the data on saturated fat has been the center of a big debate. The general perception has been that consuming increases the risk of heart attacks. This perception dates back to the 60s, when saturated fat was blamed for the epidemic of heart attacks in the US. Yet the consumption of saturated fat in the US had declined between 1910 and 1960. Medical research, however, shows that smoking and alcohol were far more likely factors behind those heart attacks, and the soaring consumption of vegetable oils did not offset the epidemic. We also found that countries with higher consumption of saturated fats, like France or Spain, have very low levels of heart attacks. In the past, this finding has been dismissed as the French paradox, an elegant way of excluding important data that do not fit in. Our own research and several medical research papers show that there is no relationship between the consumption of saturated fats and heart attacks. In addition to a misconception about saturated fats, 40% of nutritionists and 70% of the general practitioners we surveyed still believe that eating cholesterol-rich foods is bad for your heart. Medical research, however, has shown as many as 30 years ago that cholesterol-rich foods have no negative effect on health in general or on risk of cardiovascular diseases in particular. Also, there is basically no link between the cholesterol we eat and the level of cholesterol in our blood.
Hi, Doc Rico. Ryan here.
Yes, very good.
Just jumping in. Doc, I think you have to switch off the resolution option. Yeah.
Where is that? Yun.
Yeah, looks good. Question, but we'll save it for later. Siguro we can, if somebody else would like to ask, we'll later.
So their conclusion was higher intake of vegetable oils consumption is actually the one contributing to obesity and saturated and cholesterol has actually been removed in the 2015 as a nutrient of concerns because it's a very important substance actually. Even if we don't eat by the liver, 20% in our body is actually found in our brain. Hormones are produced from cholesterol, bile acids, and even vitamin D. And it has been linked, low levels of cholesterol has been linked to these diseases below: Alzheimer's, depression, memory loss, violent behavior, stroke, and even suicide. So it's the first thing I actually, when I see a patient that has statins, it's the first thing that is the first removed. And the pure study of Salim Yusuf, former president of the World Heart Foundation, they have already concluded, also like the Credit Suisse conclusion, fats, including saturated and unsaturated fat, are associated with lower risk of mortality. High carbohydrates, there is mortality. There's no association between total fats, types of fat, and cardiovascular events. So get your fats straight. There's no longer a link between saturated fat, natural saturated fat, and heart disease. We should eat more of the good fats here, natural good fats, versus the ultra processed seed oils made by manufacturers, labeled sometimes as heart healthy, like canola oil. What we should be careful of are trans fats. They can actually hide breast cancer risk, and being obese do increase the risk of developing 13 different kinds of cancers. So what we eat matters, but when you eat also matters, actually even more importantly, what we eat. So we've been eating too frequently, so we have to reduce our eating period. Shorten our eating period gradually. Start with 12 hours and then hours than 4 hours. That's intermittent fasting. It has many benefits: improve blood insulin, sugar, blood pressure, increase fat burning, and your growth hormone actually increases. It's an anti-aging hormone. You will look younger and your metabolic rate will increase. Cravings will be gone, blood lipids will improve, and it can actually stimulate your BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that can improve increase new synaptic connection and actually produce new neurons. And another powerful effect of fasting is it and apoptosis, meaning our body uses up defective parts, and it can help your body eat up those loose skin when you are losing weight. So nagiging taut ang skin when you combine intermittent fasting with low carb. So these are the medical benefits. No? Summary lang ito. So you just do a screenshot of it. Okay. And these are the more practical benefits of fasting. It's simple. You don't spend anything on fasting. Time saver. You don't spend any time cooking or preparing. And you get power over your food. And flexible and can be done anytime, any flavor. And it can actually help regenerate your diabetic pancreas. What about exercise? For exercise, for weight loss, not really, but you should stay active anyway. We do recommend walking around 7 to 10,000 steps. No? You cannot exercise yourself to good health. You need nutrition for that. But it can help maximize growth hormone, especially when done, usually at the end of a fast. No? And strength and high intensity interval training is the best choice. Shortened lang yon, hindi kailangan 1 or 2 hours na nagpapakapawis ka, and it will actually improve your insulin sensitivity. And it has similarities. Exercise and fasting has the same biochemical switches that are turned on. Kaya maganda yung combination ng fasting and exercise. And these are the usual side effects when you do fasting or ketogenic diet. But these are preventable if you're doing it right. If you're doing some supplementation with salt, potassium, and magnesium. Very preventable yan. So, dapat before you dive into it, you get properly informed first. Supplementation, the one I recommend, Nutrilite, the best of nature and the best of science. We've been using it since 2008. These are important, especially when you are coming out from a very, very bad diet. Dito usually nagkakaroon ng problema sa hair loss. Pag coming out from a bad diet, you do a keto and fasting, and then your hair falls. Hindi maganda yung keto, sasabihin mo. They're not doing it properly kasi. They're just diving in without getting the right information. A minimum food supplement should be a plant-based multivitamins, B vitamins, calcium, and magnesium with D3, especially omega-3s kasi yan ang deficient sa ating diet. No? And then we can have some optional supplements on a case-to-case basis, especially those with problems of the liver, with diabetes. These are, ito, chromium can actually improve uh, insulin sensitivity. Kaya yan ang highly recommended ko. Chromium supplementation with vanadium and Gymnema sylvestre. It helps reduce cravings for sugar. And we've been using silimarin for many years na. Mga doctors have been prescribing it. But this is the best combination that I found. Using it with milk thistle, with dandelion root, and turmeric. And fiber. If you're not eating enough vegetables, you can actually add supplemental fiber to your diet. This increases your fructooligosaccharides, yung prebiotic that's good for your good bacteria. So, itong some warnings. The first month can be very uncomfortable and may even be dangerous for some if you're not doing properly, especially with those who are already on anti-diabetic drugs and hypertensive drugs. Dapat talaga mag-ingat. You should not do it by yourself. You should have medical supervision, especially if you have these conditions. If at least one applies to you, seek a medical provider who knows keto and iron. But kung wala naman, you can do it on your own. Kaya lang dapat guided. So get these 3 books. It can change your life. So this is Jason Spoon's website, and Megan Ramos, his partner. And these are some of the topics that I cover. No? And these are some of the patients that I have had. No? I don't know if they are listening right now. No? Maybe we can call one of them. This is my classmate in Toronto, in Canada, classmate in BS Chem. Jean, nandiyan ka, di ba? And a colleague in the company clinic, a nurse, no? She eventually got her wish, a healthy baby girl. So that's it. Thank you for listening. For some questions, or if we have time, we can ask one of my patients na nandiyan sa audience ngayon. So, stop ko na yung screen share. Ryan.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doc Ricco. We learned so much. That was a wealth of information that you shared. And that video you played in the middle was such a good visual explanation of what is the difference between good and bad fats. Anyway, Doc Rico, we have a few questions. I hope you can entertain them, even if we have limited time. Our first question was actually asked by Pixie. Pixie is a 50-year-old cancer survivor. She exercises, she jogs, she eats low carbs, but her metabolism is very slow. What would be best? She is also type 2 diabetic.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. You can scroll through the message as well, Doc Rico. She's asking, she's type 2 diabetic and her metabolism is very slow. What would be the best diet for her? Are all vegetables applicable for keto?
Yeah, all vegetables. Basta hindi root crops. Avoid the root crops because they're starchy. They have high carbohydrate content. All the green leafy vegetables, Yung mga fruiting vegetables, pwede yan. Yung mga upo, cucumber, zucchini, ampalaya, yan, pwede yan. Sa fruits naman, go for lower carb fruits like mga strawberries, blueberries, medyo expensive lang, no? And go for the hindi ripe, no? Don't go, isang carb content yan. Mabilis tumaas ang blood sugar mo dyan. So, to increase metabolism, actually fasting can actually increase metabolism. And if you do some exercise, do it usually just before you end your fast. Yung short bursts of exercise lang, high intensity na mga 4 or 10 minutes lang. You don't have to do long exercises. It's another talk altogether.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rico. We'll have you give another talk in the near future, specifically on that. And then maybe we can all work out in front of our camera. Here's another question. This is from Madeline Sembrano.
Si Dr. Madge.
Okay. If vegetable oils are not good, what kind of cooking oil do you recommend? From coconut?
Coconut oil is good. Olive oil is good. Yung hindi siya dumaan sa maraming chemicals and too much processing. Kasi yung mga seed oils, vegetable oils like canola, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, dumaan yan sa maraming processing, bleaching, chemicals, etc. bago siya naging.
Yeah. That is
coconut oil and olive oil is a good choice.
Okay, so you heard it, guys. Okay, this is our third questioner. This is from Yvonne Santos. She's if she does intermittent fasting, will she be prone to ulcers? That's her question. Di ba minsan pag di na...
no? That was also my problem before, no? Kasi madali akong maging hyperacidic. But when I started intermittent fasting, it actually went away. Si Dr. Bong yan, classmate ko yan sa UST, si Dr. Yvonne Santos Guevara, no? Ang problem kasi sa ulcer or hyperacidity or GERD, it's not really the acid in the stomach. No? The normal acid in the stomach is actually as strong as battery acid. No? Ganun kalakas yung stomach acid. The problem with hyperacidity is the acid goes up our esophagus. So nakakaramdam tayo ng GERD or heartburn. So nakakaramdam tayo ng hyperacidity. It's actually yung stimulus for the lower esophageal sphincter to close is acidity of the stomach. We don't actually have enough acid, kaya hindi siya nagko-close. GERD, heartburn, is to take in diluted amounts of apple cider vinegar, instead of using antacids or yung mga proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole and so many prazoles there. So the hyperacidity will disappear. Kasi yan din ang problem ko dati.
Yeah.
Same
with me. Yeah. Now I eat 10 a.m. and I don't have gas. I don't have hindi mahapde, hindi acidic. Okay. Anyway, Doc Rico, we have one last questioner, and that's from Stella Palanca. She asks, will intermittent fasting prevent dawn phenomenon? DAWN,
Yeah.
dawn phenomenon.
Mm. Eventually, it can. No, you just have to do it longer and longer. No, what happened my diabetes? No? Initially, she was 8, 16. Medyo expert na siya, 4 hours of eating, and then 1 hour of eating. And then sometimes in a week, we do alternative day, 24-hour fasting. Eventually, the dawn phenomenon goes down. Kasi it's one of the measures that your insulin resistance is actually improving. Pag bumababa na yung elevated blood sugar early in the morning. It's actually our body's response. Kasi galing tayo sa pagkatulog eh. To produce blood sugar para hindi tayo makaramdam ng high glycemic episodes sa early morning na hindi pa tayo
Okay,
kumakain.
thank you so much for that, Doc Rico. Unfortunately, we'll have to save those questions, the other questions, for next time. More are asking, but we're running out of time right now. So thank you so much, Doc Rico. One thing that he mentioned earlier is supplementation and how important a role it plays in losing weight while being healthy. And if you're curious what Nutrilite is, where to get that omega-3, where to get those other supplements, you can actually talk to your friend who invited you to this webinar about it. You can get access. Nutrilite is not available in shopping malls and in online stores, but you can get it direct order and have it shipped to your house. But if you also want to ask Doc Rico any questions about your own personal health situation, you want to comment, you can actually get back to your friend. Doc Rico, did you show your slide with your Anyway, well, you can talk to your friend about it and they can personally send us a
Yeah,
message.
they
And
know where to reach me.
yeah, and there are certain steps so that you can consult with him. Loss coach, he's coach. But before we wrap up, I just want to let everyone know that although tonight is about health, we at Syzygy tackle many different areas of concern because we believe in holistic wellness of your health, wellness of your finances. And tomorrow night, we're going to have a different topic called bouncing forward. This is a talk instead on creating chances in your income through starting maybe a business. So that's going to be the topic tomorrow. We're going to tackle some trends going on because of COVID 19 and also identify some silver linings where you can maybe take advantage of certain things and create new sources of income for you. So many people have been disrupted, their lives, their careers, their traditional business have been disrupted, but we're here finding solutions. And if you want to know how, or at least what our project is all about, come join us tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. So, with that, I'm just going to read our parting comments and then wrap it up. So, we've got many people saying thank you to Doc Rico. And again, we've had people watching all the way from as far as Italy. So, this is awesome. We also have people watching on YouTube. So, I think earlier there were around like 80 total watching you, Doc Rico. I hope that doesn't get you nervous, no? But thanks to everyone who was interacting Oh, that I'm sorry. You're right. Somebody actually, I was so excited. I will clarify myself. I will correct myself and make it no borders. Okay. I was reading the wrong slide, no? My apologies. Tomorrow's night's topic is called No Borders. The bouncing forward is still on Tuesday. They are interrelated topics. So you're going to learn a lot about how you can be in business for yourself even if you're locked at home because of the quarantine. And tomorrow, our speaker is a business expert. Coach Ariel Driz is invited to speak for many companies, many business leaders, and he'll be sharing his time with us tomorrow night. If you want to learn about our Syzygy business project tomorrow or Tuesday, whichever you prefer, but tomorrow is a very interesting perspective on it. It's free, it's open to all. You just need the meeting ID and the password, but you can watch. And all of our webinars happen at 8 o'clock. So you don't want to miss our other webinars. And we'll have Dr. Rico back again soon to tackle a different area of health. But hopefully, this gets you started on the path of being healthier. And if you want to get access to those supplements, just talk to your friend. So, with that, maraming salamat to everyone who's watching. And we will actually wrap things up here. We'll also have this recorded and we'll upload this on YouTube. So for those who missed out or medyo choppy yung inyong connection, we'll have the edited form on YouTube uh, uploaded very, very soon. So have a great Sunday. And once again, happy Mother's Day to all our mothers. I know in some time zones, it's still early Sunday. So enjoy your Sunday with your family, with your loved ones, even if you're just spending it at home. And we'll see you again in our next webinars. Good night, guys, and God bless.